And we're live.
I'll follow your.
Yes, all the comments. Everyone's so funny. Are they live? Has it started? Welcome to Reading with Robin Live, and it's Michele Harper's debut, Beauty in Breaking, is just out today. This gorgeous, unputdownable memoir, Michele. It is such truly an honor to have you here celebrating on Pub Day.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to join you. Already been so fun.
I know. I always say, and Michele and I did, we hang out in the green room, and I should tell people it's a virtual green room because I forget which one of my friends asked which room in my house was painted green. Plus, Michele and I are socially distancing, so we're not on top of each other anyway. But it feels very intimate, though, doesn't it, Michele?
It does. It's still nice. It's better than nothing. So.
Oh, if it's nothing or this, we'll take this all day long. Plus, the technology is working. So I want to welcome the audience. Thank you all for the messages. I've been tweeting and just like jumping for joy about this Beauty in Breaking. And when they sent your publicity team sent it to me a while ago, I was like, oh my, oh yes. And there's nothing like a memoir. And this memoir, this story is just so heartfelt, and you can tell loved and dog-eared, and it is for everybody. It is such an important, beautiful book that you will revisit, you will underline it, you will go back. I made tons of notes. Visit michelleharper.com. You can also find her on Facebook.
And I just got on Instagram.
I know, you got some work to do there.
I have a lot of work to do.
I'm such a bossy, and I said to Ashley, I think did you put your picture up yet?
Danielle, my web designer, did, because I didn't have time. So.
No, I mean, you are busy. Let's say that you have a very full-time, very busy life. But yeah, I was like, where's her pretty picture? You've got all these great pictures. So you go to, it's Michele Harper MD, right? Mm-hmm. On Instagram. Yes. And then on Facebook, it's Michele Harper Author. And you go over there. You can just leave our little crowdcast, head over to Facebook and like her page. And amazing New York Times piece today. I saw one of my friends sent it this morning, Jenny Egan. Did Jenny write that? Was that Jenny?
Yes. It was such a nice book birthday gift. So it was really nice.
You know, it's an interesting time for books right now. And I've said it many times, but I'll say it again. I am a fervent belief that they're getting to more and more people, and we're all around, and people looking for entertainment. You guys need to be social distancing. This is a great way to do it. Come to these crowdcast events. Everyone's safe. And people have like little side chats going on their phones too, Michele. I've heard from people. So they're watching it with their friends, but, you know, separate. And the book, I mean, to have a debut memoir come out during this time and about what this book is about is like mind-blowing. So let's start there. What is that like?
Well, I think it's a little bit unfortunate, but, you know, I speak about various topics. Of course, there's domestic violence and violence against women and racism in America. I wrote this book. I started writing this book years ago. Wow. Little did I know how time it would be. So it's good that we're more open to these dialogues right now. I'm grateful for that. It's frustrating and heartbreaking that we still have to be doing this work, but I'm hoping that this is a watershed moment and that there will be real progress. So I'm super excited and proud and thrilled and happy to be part of this moment.
Well, I am so excited when I see a book like this come out, and the conversations and the readers who really want to learn and to explore and have conversations. I think books are great conversation starters. I think they're really a great way in. And it seems to be like some books that are coming out now, and we know they're many years in the making and all of this, but they seem to be like, I don't know, although you believe in, I mean, from reading your book, you must believe that there was a reason that the book came out now.
Right? I do believe it. I do believe it because the waiting involved for me to get this book out.
You talk about that because people love to know what was the publishing story. You're a doctor, you're an ER doc. How did you decide to write this memoir, and what was your publishing journey?
Right. You know, It's so interesting because my background is medical. I mean, I took writing classes in high school, but that wasn't part of my training at all. I just did the medical pathway the whole time. And I resonate more with being in the healing field and being a healer, even more than just the specific title of doctor.
Right.
So in my mind, okay, well, in emergency medicine, I can help one person at a time or one family at a time. But with writing, theoretically, it can reach many people at a time. And there's a potential to engage with people outside of my geographic area, just everywhere. So that really was in keeping with my mission as a healer. The journey was interesting since this wasn't my background at all. As I was working, I would see stories that stayed with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like the female veteran I met in the psychiatric part. Oh, I should ask you, can we
Yeah.
talk? I've been on some shows where they're like, we're going to talk about material that could be sensitive. Is that
No,
fine?
I have never, we could say there could be trigger warnings, right? I guess, is that what you mean? Like,
Yeah.
so,
I just wanted to clear it so I don't upset anybody.
yeah, I don't want to upset anybody. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there could be some trauma triggers,
Right.
right? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
That hasn't come
Just
up.
saying.
Yeah. That hasn't, I don't know if that's come up, but absolutely. And usually I will say we won't have spoilers, but it's a memoir. It's very hard to talk about a memoir without, spoilers in that way, but you're talking about honor in this.
Yes. Yes. Like cases, I don't mean it in an impersonal way when I say cases, but a patient interaction
Right.
that will stay with me. And an example is Miss Honor, they're all pseudonyms, who a patient I meet in the psychiatric part of the ER, she's coming in for clearance. Clearance meaning she's getting sober. She needs some medical documentation. She's okay to go on to her sober house, her mental health program. So it could have been a quick interaction. And we started talking, and she had revealed that some of the trauma she was healing from was being raped while she was stationed overseas. She's a veteran. And actually, she's about to reenlist. So she's
Oh,
in the military,
wow.
and at that time,
Wow.
and she was raped by not only her supervisor but also her colleague. And the military, apart from the crimes they commit against her body, her mind, her soul, they then try and cover it up and ruin her career. So to take away her livelihood, and that's where I'm meeting her, and so we talk about what her journey is to healing. And thankfully, she is getting sober. She is with a new group who's trying to restore her record. That's different than justice.
Right.
And that's what I talk about. And the point of telling stories like that is justice is holding people accountable. Justice is changing the structure that created that. So I hope in working with and telling these stories that have stayed with me, that we can make that difference. And so as I saw stories that affected me in that way, that's when I said, you know what, maybe I should put pen to paper. And it literally started that way, pen to paper, writing a book. And then I thought, well, you know what, maybe I should do something with it. And I found out you need to get an agent.
Ah,
And then
yeah.
that took over a year. And then I did get a book deal, and I edited with them for a year, and then waited for what felt like a year before it would come out. And so I was really sweating with all this time. And then COVID was happening, and I thought, how can a book be coming out now? But still I had faith because I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. I thought, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. Timing is meant, as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And now that it's happening, it really is a good time to be having this book out and having the discussion around the themes that I speak about in the book. So I agree with you. That's a very long way of saying I agree with you.
Well, no, hey, as long as it takes for you to say that you agree with me, Michele, I'm cool with that. Because when you read somebody's memoir, you obviously get such a sense of the healing of your deep spiritual connection, of yoga, how it all comes together. So I had to think if anybody would be cool with the way the books are coming out now, it would be Michele Harper. And the book is called The Beauty in Breaking. And it's a gorgeous title. It's such a meaningful, visceral reaction to a title like this. I mean, so was this always the title? Can you talk about the title?
Yeah, actually, I came up with the title when I finished the first draft of the book. And it was this title. I have to tell you, I can't even remember the other title I came up with. The other title was more literal and
Mhm.
more clinical, like standard blah blah, like an ER doctor story. And I thought, no, that's not who I am. I love art, and this is spiritual. I want it to resonate
Mhm.
with intention for the book. So this is the one I picked. And everyone said, well, they're probably going to change it. That's how it goes with books. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see. I have to be open, but this is the one I love. And it stuck. And I'm really glad.
And the attention to detail and your love of art. I mean, so it all really comes through. And in talking about Miss Honor, and really, I think at the point in the book, you're not sure, but then you go and ask her if she'll share
Mm-hmm.
with you. Like, so to be open to that, because some people would have done what they came to do. You know, the time is ticking. You've got people to see. And, so there must have been something where you were like, there's a story here and I'm here to accept it, kind of thing.
Yeah, in that case, now don't get me wrong, in clinical work, there are plenty of times when even if I want to do that, I literally can't.
Mhm.
There's, some heart attack, a stroke, and then 10 people registering, and it's just not possible. But then there are those other times, there's those other times it is possible, and there's just something in my gut. I could feel the pain. And what was important for me is that I felt it was important, whatever she was going, before I knew what it was, whatever had happened to her, I felt it was important for me to hear her, to recognize that, to also be one of the people to affirm that what they did to you was wrong. It was wrong and it is not fair. And then it turns out, as we were talking, that that part of the intuition was correct.
You must be very intuitive. Do you ever like ook yourself out? Like, do you wait for lab results? Or you're like, I can feel what's going on here. You must have like some of that, right? When you,
And it happened once. I won't tell it though because it's too weird.
no, I believe it because like I'm very in tune to that and very sort of connected to those things, and so like none of those things surprise me. But you could just reading this book, and it's so fabulous, and you guys can buy it right here where it says "Order of Beauty and Breaking" right here. I think I'm pointing to the right thing. Everyone is going to just like want to read this book, talk about this book, and share it with friends. That's what I do when I love a book. Well,
Oh,
I tell everybody. But there are things, so many stories in this book about you weave your own personal story.
oh yeah.
Talk about that and your patience and this real sense of forgiveness and what it does for oneself, not for the other person necessarily, or maybe as a byproduct, but that sort of carrying that around and how damaging that can be, and how much time can be spent sort of going in circles on that. And so, talk a little bit about the beginning of the story
Mm-hmm.
and where you're coming from, like where it starts for you.
Mm-hmm. And it does start with some of my own personal story and trauma, specifically childhood trauma, growing up in a household with a batterer for a father and his wife, who's my mother. So my days, nights, all the time was punctuated by violence. It was not safe. Uh, and what was the question again? I started to wander off.
That's okay. That's okay. I was just thinking about your own story and
Right.
talking
Yes.
about sort of
So,
how you grew up,
so,
and where
so
there's no telling,
I,
so you can't tell anybody what's going on.
yes.
Really.
And I started, right. Because I knew I was going somewhere and I started to lose the thread.
That's
But
okay.
it was about forgiveness. It was, one example is with my father. It was very important. I had to forgive my mother as well, but it was very important for me to forgive my father, for example. Um, and it had nothing to do with him. And I do make the point because I don't want people to think that forgiveness is about condoning behavior, accepting behavior. That's not true at all. I mean, he did heinous things like in an effort for my brother to protect my mother, which could have happened on any day, but there was one time where he bit my brother's thumb, and it was bitten badly. And I was young when that happened, and it stayed with me because I thought to myself, and of course I didn't have the words to express myself because I was young, but what affected me deeply was the knowledge that someone I'm related to could commit such an act of brutality. I mean, it just seemed the act of biting with the intent to maim another human being just felt so savage to me. So the possibility of that, knowing that that could happen anytime, is obviously unmooring.
Right.
And that's what I lived with. And with the knowledge that one day my purpose, my mission in life was to know that I would survive, know that my family, my mother, my brother, my sister would survive, and that I could go on to help people who also felt stuck, who felt in danger, who were hurting. Um, but an important part of that process, an important part of that process is that in order to free myself, to like cut the ties to that trauma, I also had to forgive my father. Um, I know he was a broken man. He had a lot of trauma in his past. And, you know, this trauma can go different ways. I'm never one to romanticize trauma. I recognize that we can grow from it.
Mhm.
We can become resilient, stronger, more caring, more empathetic. Or it can change us in ways where we recreate that suffering in our lives and the lives of other people. And he recreated that suffering for other people. So I forgave him, and there was a rift for a very long time.
Right.
Um, and I do make the point because I think it's so important that forgiving someone doesn't mean that they can be in your life. It just means that you're both free to grow and move on. The question of whether or not he could come back or anybody toxic could come back in my life had to do with, are they still toxic?
Right.
Are they safe? Does it make sense? So always important for me to make that distinction.
Yeah, it's so important. And also talking about sort of breaking that cycle of
Hmm.
trauma and that because it is a historical, you know, you can go back and see
Oh
uh,
yeah.
and so many people can trace back and go, okay, you know, so where does that end, and acknowledging that. But yeah, very important distinction of not condoning, but allowing that space. And I won't give anything away because we find out some of that in the book, but
Right.
you have to read it
Sure.
in the beauty in breaking, and visit michelleharper.com for more info, and find her at Michele Harper MD on Instagram, where there may be a picture soon, and also find her on Facebook at Michele Harper, author. You're going to be hearing so much about this book, and you're going to be like, oh my God, it came out on July 7th, and Michelle was on Reading with Robin.
Yes.
Of course she was. Um, and you also talk about violence in the ER. And, you know, talk about some of the other, I wrote down Gabriel and Joshua. I mean, I got so attached to these people that you know, these patients and their stories. And there must have been so many people, but these are the ones that you included in the book that really stuck with you, that you would journal about, I guess, pen to paper, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there were many stories, and depending how they fit with the trajectory of the book, that kind of decided whether or not they were in. Then, of course, there's always a cut time when we're done. We're just going to work with this material.
That must be
So,
hard because it must be so, I mean, you seem to get in there and really be able to assess the way you write, you know, the way you write too. And I can't believe that you weren't right. It's very poetic, and art, you know, just very artistic prose. So I really felt like I was in the room, and, and,
okay.
and meeting these families, and there's, you know, just really taking in their stories.
Well, thank you. That's quite a compliment. Thank you.
You're welcome. Because there is so much drama. I mean, also just talking about, you know, when when maybe you get a heads up from the EMTs and know what you're expecting, or when you have no idea what's expecting, and it's very dramatic waiting there, you know, with everything laid out because you know what to expect, as opposed to just like figuring it out as someone's coming in. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about that energy?
Right.
In the,
Right. Or sometimes we get a call, something, they might say, gunshot wound to the chest, but it's really just to the arm, which makes a big difference. Or somebody they're fine, they're a little short of breath, they're doing well, and then they'll be rolled in unconscious, not breathing at all. And so we weren't ready. So
Right.
in some ways, there are some times when it's better to not even get the call, just to
Mhm.
present moment with it and address it when it comes in. I mean, it's good to get an alert so we can make sure the room's together, but not being biased, especially if it's an undercall, is it's helpful in that respect.
Yeah, one of the stories that you tell, I was like, oh my God, should they have known, or should they, it was very tense. I felt like I was watching a drama unfold. And you also talk about a lot about views on gender and power and being passed up for,
Oh,
well, I mean, like literally it's not a big, I
yeah,
mean, it's not a small book, but it's not a huge book, but there's so much packed into the story. And again, such important conversations to have. And was somebody that said to you that, that's why people leave, like they don't get promoted where they should be. Um,
right. Yeah, my director, that was just one example,
just
just
one,
one time.
right.
But he was very honest. I mean, he said things. I was I was recently interviewed for Fresh Air that should be out in a couple days, but I remember when Dave Davies was speaking to me, he was like, "That's illegal. I can't believe he just said that to you. That's a discrimination lawsuit." Because I was going for a position in
Right.
the hospital. I was still going to work clinically, but I was going for a hospital administrative position, which isn't uncommon. Like doctors do that kind of thing. Um, but I didn't get it. And he explained that my ER director explained, I'm so sorry, even though you were the only applicant, and even though you were highly qualified for it, they just said, we'll leave it open. And then he told me that I can never, this hospital just won't promote women or people of color. So they always leave, but I hope you'll stay here with me anyway. I did end up leaving, and I did find out not long after I left that a white male nurse was given the position, and that's just how it goes there.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are some of the, touching on some of the, the systemic issues that, I mean, do you think that I mean, how do you feel about the way the conversation in the country is going? I mean, that's a really heady question, but
Right.
finally feel like maybe there's more movement and there's like more open discussion and like more possibility at this moment? Does it kind of, the COVID weird moment feel like that?
There could be. I mean, because there's clearly a lot of energy for a lot of, I mean, there's factors why that is. Like people are home, people have time to consume information, they potentially have time to change their viewpoints and act. So there is a dialogue that's happening that it's not a different dialogue, but the dialogue has a different energy. So I remain hopeful, but I'm also realistic. Change takes time. And for the structural change we'll need,
Right.
um, that's going to take time. So as long as people realize this is not instant gratification, that's not how it works. This is going to require lifetime effort, like our lifetimes, the next lifetimes, and then yes, I believe that there will be improvements. I believe there will, as long as there's constant, persistent pressure.
Right, vigilance and keeping these conversations open and not being
Yeah.
quieted or told to or what now, just
And
like
knowing that it's not just conversation, because
no.
people can talk all day long. I'm impressed with action, what
Right.
people do. I really care very little about what people say. It's
I
what they
yeah,
do.
right. Follow it up. I know the energy is great, and then you want to see, like I know a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, when publishing sort of came out with what they're planning on doing, and actual
Yeah.
actionable step like that seems very specific. So like that's what but yeah, I'm sure the conversation, it's exhausting, right? I mean, it's got to just like how much can we talk? But we can also read.
Exactly.
the beauty in breaking. And you have so much to say here. And also the way you make your decisions and how you choose to take in that information. I mean, you left that one, that hospital, and now you said you're in New Jersey, right? You're
Yeah, I mean, I still live in
right.
Philadelphia
And
now. Mhm.
are you
And
in?
the one thing about my commute is that because I don't like commuting, I think it's because I've always lived in big cities. I'm not a commuter.
Right.
But now I have a commute. But the one good thing is I listen to audiobooks and podcasts. And we were talking about spirituality before. I usually listen to on my way into work just so I can get in the mindset. I'll listen to Eckhart Tolle or something spiritual, which is helpful.
Yeah, and I like that you talk in the book. I mean, I see you have your coffee because there's a lot of coffee in the book, which I
Yeah.
and whenever somebody writes a book and there's coffee, I'm so easily suggested. I'm like, oh yeah, I could have a thumbs up. So I could tell you love your coffee, which I really liked, and I saw you drinking it. But also the music that you choose to play, and in one particular ride home, I think a song that you put on. So like you're very connected to the music and how you're feeling and sort of how it sets
Yeah.
intention. And talk about like what it's like working that. Is it the third shift? Like at right? Is it the night
Oh,
shift?
the night. Oh, the
Is that when
night.
did you go in at night or?
It's all over. I mean, I could have days, afternoon,
Oh,
nights.
okay, I thought you were maybe it was one part where you were talking about
Yeah.
what your day routine was, and then like taking a nap, and that whatever.
So it depends. It's all over the
Yeah,
place.
like yeah, what's it like at 3 o'clock in the morning in the ER or 4 o'clock? And is that is there something specifically about that time that's more for reflection if it happens to be a quiet night?
Potentially, because around that time, often there is a lull. So there's potentially the space for reflection. But honestly, there is no way to know because by the same token, at that time, uh, an infant could be brought in seizing. It could, so you never know what's going to happen. But you know that if it happens at that hour, many other healthcare providers in the hospital or specialists aren't there.
Right,
So it's a little
right.
higher stakes at that time.
Yeah, so and you talk about what your job is in the ER and where how far you go with a patient and then what the next steps are. So what was it about emergency room medicine that was so attractive to you, or that's where that you decided to focus?
I mean, honestly, I fully believe that I mean, the reason I was drawn specifically to emergency medicine is because I wanted to be there with people when they felt like they were in crisis. They may not actually be in crisis or not. I mean, people get scared and that feels like crisis.
Right.
But I am positive. I feel that my childhood groomed me for emergency medicine because I was used to seeing a situation, only getting a snapshot of what's going on and having to decide, okay, is this life threatening? Is it likely to blow over so we can manage it? Or are things okay? So I think that aspect of my childhood groomed me for it. And then it really stuck because I knew what it was like to feel like I was in crisis. I also knew what it was like to know that there was no one there to help me. And I wanted to be of service to other people who felt like that.
Wow. And you knew that at such a young age. I think you talk in the book where you like 7.5 and you heard.
Yeah.
No, have you heard that since? Like, talk about what that was like at 7.5, because that was
Well, right. Um, and I was just playing, and it was quiet, which was kind of unusual. And no one was around. I was by myself playing with my little pony. And I received a message. I mean, there was no one, but I felt a presence. And I heard this message that was, I will be okay. I'm going to survive. My family will survive. And that I also have to because I'm supposed to help many people. And I remember when I heard it and I looked around, I didn't see anyone in form, but the message was so clear. And I just felt I was just I felt a peace just go over me. And the message stayed with me my whole life. And it really got me through when things were really terrible and I was scared and it was depressing. I always remembered that message. And I was like, listen, I would say to my internal dialogue was, you got this message. There's a reason, there's a meaning, there's a purpose. You can get through this. You can survive. And it served me well. And, you know, everyone's different. People can say, well, that's just your inner wisdom at 7 years old. You came up with this. Or it could be a guardian angel. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But whatever you call it, it was critical.
Yeah.
And were there other times where like I've gotten these insights? Certainly. I mean that's clearly and probably because of the timing of it, and the significance of it, that is the most memorable and most dramatic. But there have been little whispers along the way.
Yeah, I wondered that. I wonder if that was like a you know, a theme, or, you know, there were other times where you sort of either heard it again or revisited that moment.
Oh my gosh, there was one time. I mean, this is common, but it was also a little bit dramatic. There was one time I was driving. This was my intern year. So I went to my residency program at the time was 2-3-4, which meant the first year you had to do in another field. And then the last 3 years you would come to your primary program and, you know, do emergency medicine. So my first year was in internal medicine. I was out in Long Island rushing to the hospital because I was tired and we're always just rushing and we're always working. And there was nobody around because it's super early that I had to be at the hospital. I was at my red light, nobody around, and the light turned green and something said, don't go yet. And I was like, I need to get to work. Like, I need to go. And something said, don't go. And I didn't go. And I looked, and out of nowhere, a Mack truck was running the red light in front of me.
Wow.
So that was also fairly dramatic. So I just had to share that because
wow. Where were you? I'm from Long Island. Where were you on Long Island? What intersection were you at?
Oh, you know, I don't remember the name of the intersection.
Like,
it was, I mean,
that you have to just be like, I have such a strong sense when you get that. I mean, right, a green light,
yeah.
You take a beat,
Right, exactly.
No idiots going past you, but then to like hear don't go, and then to see that.
It was crazy.
Someone's watching over. Yeah, I mean, I totally believe that. Well, I'm going to go to some questions, Michele, because I can't keep it all to myself. Pam would like to know, when did you know you wanted to write a memoir? And well, we kind of went over this, but a little bit about the publication, about getting the agent. How did you find the agent?
Oh gosh, it was mainly over a year of rejection letters. Honestly, just mainly so since I didn't know what I was doing at all, I hired an editor who subsequently she's an editor, literary consultant, and Dubuisson. We're friends now. I love her. I trust her. But so she was helping me come up with a list. And, you know, everybody had warned me. Nobody knows you. You're just this random person. I mean, you know, go with God, see how it goes. And so, yeah, I was rejected. Even one. And I wish I had kept this email. But I remember there was one woman, one agent I didn't hear from. So I thought I would never hear because it was either rejection or silence,
right?
Which is the same thing. It's just a more polite form of rejection. But I didn't hear from her for months. And then 6 months later, it was like near the holidays, she writes, oh, sorry, I meant to get back to you. So I'm reading it thinking, oh, this is going to be good. She's like, so here's 3 doctors who are already writing. We don't need to hear from you.
Wow. Four tables full.
Right. And they were all men, by the way.
Of course, right.
It was, yeah.
So you don't have her name? You can't send her a copy of your book?
No. And at first, I wish. And I've searched my emails. Like, isn't there a way? Isn't it in the trash somewhere? But
it's in the trash? Is that in the cloud? It's not in the cloud? I'm like, I've got to get to the bottom of Michelle's cloud.
I'm going to try. But No, I wish I could and like send her the New York Times review.
Yeah,
But okay, so it was that long process, and then, but Anne did connect me to my current agent who said yes. But then it was like a month, maybe less than a month, then it sold at auction. So
wow,
then and then the editing and now here we are. So, but
great.
it was really fortunate though because I am a newcomer and from what I hear it's an uncommon story, but I will say to people that I mean, the inspiring message everyone says that if your heart and soul is into this, to whatever your mission is, and you feel it is part of your life path and purpose, to keep going. Because if I had stopped 6 months into the rejections, 8 months,
Right.
12 months, you know,
Wow. No, you just want to stop when you're on Long Island and a Big Mac truck might be going by. Then you stop, but not when
right, exactly.
you've got your mission and people are also leaving you messages. I know if I know you and we know each other so well at this point, it will come to you who that person was, or
I
in
need,
in some way, it just like the
who
little
knows? Maybe
world.
she'll disclose herself. Like maybe one day she'll hear me tell. I swear to you, like if I ever do a TED talk, this is gonna be in the TED talk.
Oh,
Maybe that woman will say, you know what?
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just like Simon Cowell said to
I,
Jennifer Hudson when he didn't pick her, or he said, "Yeah, remember that moment when Simon Cowell was like, oops, yeah, Jennifer Hudson is awesome."
right.
Right? That makes that lady Simon Cowell, I guess. You talk also about your inner contract with yourself. I loved that. Can you talk about that whole process of having? I don't know. It was like that. It was very meaningful. It was towards the end of the book. I'm telling you where it was, but about
Right.
There- there's
I
a
mean,
lot of takeaways in this book. Really,
yeah.
this is a book that you will want to read over and over and share parts of it. The Beauty in Breaking, and it's just out today, and it's by Michele Harper. Visit her at michelleharper.com. Can somebody put michelleharper.com in the comments? Sometimes I like to have a little job. Susie Gilman, I will call on you.
Give me homework.
michelleharper.com. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. There's homework. Yes, when you talk about the inner contract, then I'll get another
Right.
question.
So in general, it gets to my philosophy of living from a place of radical honesty and integrity. So it's important for me to, in general, identify how I'm feeling, what is going on, um, knowing that what's important for me is to live my path and not a story handed to me, not to live my role in someone else's life story. That's not important. Everybody needs to, in my opinion, live their own path. I mean, if somebody disagrees with you, that's fine because that's part of the contract. You can do what you want. but but that's what's important to me. And
Right.
like title, I mean, this is going a little bit off, but for me, titles don't matter, whether that's if it's a certain family member or the fact that I'm supposed to be in a certain role. And don't get me wrong, I feel that as humans, I feel that we should be respectful to each other
Mhm.
and kind, um, but that the integrity part is critical. And that's it. And I respect someone else's need to pursue their own path and freedom and path to self actualization. And that's what I want for myself. And so if that means that our journeys collide or come together for a certain amount of time, if that means that they separate, that's fine. That's beautiful. That's part of it. So that's my philosophy in life.
I like that. It's very calming, and it makes it seem to be okay to be broken in those places, which thus your
Yeah.
fabulous title. Um, I'm just reading questions. Danielle would like to know, what do you hope people take away from reading your memoir?
Well, first I really the true answer is that I hope they take away whatever is meant for them, and I mean that broadly. I mean truthfully, because I don't think it's for me to really specify because it. I think that has to do with a person's life experience and where they are on their path and with their own healing. I mean, I can say that I wrote it with the intention of demonstrating our interconnectedness as humans, and that we all have challenges and we've all had experiences that are painful and that break us, maybe to the point that we don't even know if we'll be able to recover or survive. And I wanted to show in these stories that it is possible and that people can make different decisions. But should we choose, we can heal ourselves. And from that place of healing and being healed, that we can support each other and be part of someone else's process of healing and evolution.
Yeah, the healing comes across, it's the in the deepest sense of the word of what your mission would be. So, and you're a doctor, go figure. It's the perfect way to get,
And by the way, if someone ever, if there are follow-up questions or they're like, yeah, but what I really meant, feel free.
Oh yeah, feel free. And also people should know, like Michele, you should know too, this Crowdcast event stays up and people do continue to ask questions or comments. You can come back here at any time and visit your new friends and leave messages for them. And thank you, Sandy, for putting up Michele's website. You guys can click on it there and also go to her Facebook page, like it. And you're going to just be hearing so much. I mean, there's so much coming out about the book. It was in the New York Times today. Jenny Egan did a great piece and on Fresh Air and just everywhere. And on the news, you said earlier, right? You were on.
Oh, yeah.
Did that
like unrelated?
In an unrelated topic, Michele was asked her opinion, a mutual opinion. Let me just see. Is there a story happened during the COVID crisis you wish you could, that you wish would have been in your book? So is there somebody you met in the past, I guess 3 or 4 months, who you might have included their story?
Not really. Not really, only because I like the way the book is. I feel like it's complete. But I've continued to write since the book at that time. So like during COVID, I had a piece in Medium related to coronavirus and our experience. There's an essay I just wrote I'm waiting to see where it'll be placed. Okay. So, I mean, it's just a long way of saying that I'm still writing about things that topics and patient encounters that I feel are really powerful and impactful. And again, maybe other people. So because of that, I don't have any regrets of people not being included.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear you're still writing, and people can, when you go to michelleharper.com, when those articles are up, your wonderful web person will attach them. So, and when I see, I will also, I continue after the book is out and after we've had this connection and you're my new best friend, I will continue to share all of the articles. Who are some authors that inspire you? Anissa wants to know.
Okay, so the people who immediately come to mind are James Baldwin and Audre Lorde. That's what comes to mind immediately. But then I like Roxane Gay, Rebecca Solnit, some people who are still alive. I would mention them, right? They're so, oh my gosh. And I read, actually, my laptop is propped up on the book.
Oh, really?
A terrible thing to waste. Harriet Washington, another person.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so I'm going on.
It's so funny. Wait, so it's propping. I know I have books under my computer sometimes. Yes. They're the ones I want. And yes, my friend Jody, my roommate from college, my bestie Jody, also is a Stony Brook alum. Oh, that's right. So you're in Stony Brook. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's what she was. Yeah, that's where she went to dental school, I think.
Honestly, it's a great place for school too, because I mean, being an inner city person, there wasn't much to do in that location geographically, which was perfect because I needed to study. So
well, you had the Smith Haven Mall, Michele. Did you ever go there? You must have.
Go where?
Smith Haven Mall. That's what there is to do.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Smithtown. I can tell you there's a mall. That's about it.
right.
The mall and Stony Brook and Port Jeff. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So I love all of these. Okay, so let me ask another question. And then, yeah, you guys can continue to ask questions. What have you observed about race and practicing? Where did I lose that? Practicing, I'm sorry. I lost the whole message. Where did it go? All right, I'll find it. This one, without having read the book, obviously, somebody.
Right.
Can you talk a bit about how you grew up, educationally, economically, in an atmosphere that you did? Somebody must have been in your corner backing you up. Zoe asks.
Well, I grew up in Washington, D.C. By the way, I love Washington, D.C. But I grew up in Washington, D.C. In an affluent neighborhood. And now I've been away full time from DC since high school, so I haven't really lived there full time since then. But affluent neighborhood, also predominantly black, and then I went to National Cathedral School, which was still is like a great education in school, and I loved Washington. I'm not religious, but I loved going to the cathedral as well. So that was my. I hope I answered that question. That's how I grew up, and then went away to college and everything else.
I think the other part of the question, Zoe's question, was there somebody in your corner, like, bolstering you up and propelling you forward within the trouble in the house, that was in your corner, I think is what she wrote.
Well, nobody. There was nobody who was, to my knowledge. I guess they'll come forward if they knew and didn't do anything. But I think nobody knew about what was happening at home, because that's part of the cult of silence that exists for affluent families and families where there are abuse. It's really common. So I'm not aware that anyone was aware. In general, there were some teachers I liked, but I
Right.
don't think. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in the way that I feel I understand the question, I don't know that there was anyone in my corner in that way.
I understand what you're saying, because nobody would have known, so there was no corner to be in, technically.
Right.
And thank you, Susan Jane Gilman, for rephrasing or reprinting the question from Sahar. The beauty of your face, Mustafa. That's a
But
book.
I will.
Yes, I'm
I
sorry.
will say. Sorry for interrupting. There's sometimes a little bit of a delay, so I apologize.
No.
I will say though that now that I'm an adult and a physician, like where I'm in a role where I'm a mandated reporter, so part of my job is to recognize signs and to screen and ask certain questions, so that if a patient comes in and they might be a victim of trafficking or other abuse in the home, where they're being any kind of abuse, we don't need to get graphic, you know what I'm saying. It's my job specifically to ask the questions and to ask alone, and say to a parent, oh, there's a couple questions I just have to ask alone with your daughter or with your son. And so that's my job to tell. I will say, in retrospect, now that I'm an adult and I do this work, it is a little surprising to me, because there were signs. So the fact that no one ever asked, it makes me a little sad that no one asked the questions, like with all the, I got regular medical care, I went to school, that no one asked the questions. Now that's common because it's hard, and what are people going to do about it? And a lot of times people don't want to know. It's easier just let us all agree that this is not an issue and just move forward with that. So yeah, there were some people who could have known, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, I know there's a lot to think about. I'm telling you, this book packs a big. Well, there's so many, because they're in the book. You're asking somebody if they're safe, right? I forget which.
Yeah.
Then you're at, when you have privacy there, you're asking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I do that a lot. I do that all the time now. Like,
you're a healer. I mean, you're an intuitive,
right.
You're an intuit and a healer and an empath for sure.
Yeah.
A yogi, and a coffee drinker. So Susan Gilman, my dear friend and author, is relaying a question from Sahar Mustafa, another dear friend and author. The Beauty of Your Face is her book. I hope I got that title right off the top of my head. Her question is, what have you observed about race and practicing medicine and those intersections, and or what has been challenging as a Black female physician? In 5
We don't. This however long this segment is not gonna be long enough. But what I will say, I mean, it's pretty much everything, because we get it from all sides. I mean, I talked about institutionally with hiring and promoting. We also get it from patients. I mean, it literally is everything. I mean, it's the air, it's the environment, it's everything. It's never not. It's more striking when it's less of an issue. Like, that's one of the reasons why I loved my residency program. And I went to Lincoln in South Bronx. I mean, you know, shout out to Lincoln. There's been turnover. I don't know. They even redesigned it. I don't know what it's like now, but it was a really lovely experience in that. I like working in inner city environments, and also that are low resourced, where I feel like there's a need. You go where the need is. And also, it was the only place where the clinical staff was also diverse, which is meaningful to the patients. I mean, it's a very bizarre concept to me, but it has to do with structural racism and structural sexism. It's bizarre to be serving a community and the provider staff looks nothing like them.
Right. You want to go in and
it's not appropriate, it's not fair. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
But so I mean, it's a backwards way of answering it, but that was the one time in my career where it didn't feel so oppressive in that way. Now, there are other issues that were highlighted, like it's not fair that the community doesn't have more resources, that we didn't have enough equipment. In general, it's, you know, part of the same structural racism that, in my experience anyway, at least working in the Northeast, that if you want to work in inner city communities that are immigrant and people of color, you're going to make less than you work in other communities. You're not going to have the specialists as if you work in other communities. That's a larger structural problem, must be addressed, and it's all part of the same issue.
Right.
And I will say, to better answer your question, I just finished before this an interview with People magazine, and there's a profile of me specifically talking about racism in medicine. So that should be posted sometime today, but that'll better answer.
We're sitting here, Michele. We could be sitting here chatting, and People magazine could be working. It's someone go up.
It could be. They're gonna.
Yeah.
They text me. They're gonna text me soon.
Yeah, I think that or streamers will come from the sky and fall on your head, and it's people online.
You never know.
You are so much fun, and this book is so gorgeous, and I'm so excited to be sharing it with everybody. Somebody wants to know, Letty asked, do you think you'll write a medical fiction novel? Any fiction writing in your future?
I suppose. I mean, you can never say never, I suppose, but I will say in general that nonfiction resonates with me more. I mean, you can probably tell from most of the authors I mentioned. I mean, yeah, Roxane Gay, she does everything. But in general, I read nonfiction, and I enjoy writing nonfiction. So I don't really, I'm working on a couple things for kids. That's the only exception I could see, like a little children's book, that would be fiction.
That would be awesome.
But otherwise, I don't really see it. Maybe, but
right?
I don't know.
I know. Who knows? I mean,
I love fiction. I respect fiction. It's yeah.
Right, well, we'll see. If Michele writes it, I'll be bringing it to you, so no worries. But I love the idea of a children's book. I mean, you know, everything really starts with education and children, and bringing that up. So anything that really is focused around literacy and children and education, and, you know, when they're just these little beings and they're open to everything, that's, you know, that's where hope mostly lies. And then, you know, just everybody who is paying attention and reading and talking and not just talking, doing, there's
Right.
doing.
Right.
It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of talking. So more doing. I think that's hope. But I love the idea of a children's book, and a writer writes, so you'll be writing.
Yeah.
And this was just such a treat. And thank you to the audience. Oh, Janet,
Yeah.
you think helping others heal has helped you heal? Janet would like to know.
Yeah. Yes is the answer. Yes is the answer, because these interactions have been portals. What time does this end?
Well, actually, you know what, Michelle, it ends when I say camera off, because
Okay.
we really don't have to. We really don't. It's like kind of like a party at the end when, everyone's going and then the guests are clearing up, but you're eating the leftovers. Right now, I wish we could be eating the leftovers. You don't really have to.
I just want to give just a quick example. I'll be super brief about the example, but
Fine.
it was a difficult case, and it was after my divorce. And when I moved here and was living here in Philadelphia alone, things started to hit me, and there was time and space to process. And there was a baby we were trying to resuscitate in the emergency department. You could tell when the baby rolled in, this baby was already gone, but it was a baby, and it was perfect and beautiful. So we tried everything to bring the baby back, and we couldn't. And when I went home that evening, I just cried. And I cried for the first time. I wasn't a big crier. I mean, now, like, I'll cry in commercials and stuff. But then I wasn't a big crier. And floodgates just opened. I didn't know what it was like to lose a child, but I knew what it was like to lose your dreams and your hopes and wanting to have something so badly and even working for it. And then it's just gone with no explanation and no warning. So that was an example of something that just opened me up, and it allowed me to look at, okay, well, what really happened? Like, what was the trauma of your childhood? What was the trauma of the divorce, which really was just the trauma of a loss? I mean, honestly, it was okay that we weren't together anymore, but it was more the fact that was I felt at the time, my one chance of creating the family in a positive way that I thought family should look like. And now that was gone. So that's an example of a case that was a portal for me to be radically honest and to heal.
Wow. Yeah, that was a heartbreaking piece to read about that bit, and also very beautiful. You honor all of your patients and the stories that you tell, and the hope and the love in this book. And it is The Beauty in Breaking by Michele Harper. And again, visit michelleharper.com and find her on Facebook and Instagram and People Magazine online. And it was really, this just was such a treat. I was so looking forward to it, and I'm thrilled that the audience so enjoyed it. And thank you guys for all of your comments. And Michele, we'll be following you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It was really fun hanging out with you.
So
and
great.
On the book birthday day.
I know, on Pub Day. And guys, if you're not already following, go up there where it says Robin Call. There's a little green button. If your button's green, please click on it so it's not green, and then you will follow, and you will see all of the upcoming events here on Crowdcast. And to have you here today, Michele, on Pub Day. Do you have your book with you? Can you hold yours up too? Or do you not have?
Yes. There's a pencil in it. There's some. Yeah, I mark things up too. So like,
yeah, you got it. So we can take a picture. Yay! Oh, thank you, Michele. All the success in the world. We will be following you. So.
Yes, thank you. We'll keep in touch.
Thank
you so much.
Of course. No, you're in the Reading with Robin hug, so you can't go anywhere. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody, and thank you, Michele. Bye.
Bye.